Dividend stocks, they're supposed to be some of the best, safest investments you can make, but what dividend stocks should you absolutely avoid? Let's go ahead and break it down. So what I did today is pull together a list of companies that if you invested 100 shares 5 years ago, you would have lost money when you include the dividends. And a lot of these stocks are really popular, which really throws me off a bit. But also there is one company that I am strongly considering buying, even though it is on this list. So the first one is Verizon. Now Verizon and AT&T are extremely popular for the dividend investor. Now AT&T thankfully would have made you a little bit of money, and by a little bit of money I mean like less than 3%, but at least you didn't lose, because Verizon was a loser. So 5 years ago, you would have needed about $5,500 to invest in Verizon. Today, you'd have $5,433. Okay, so $5,433, you would have lost, what is that, $70 or so, right around $70. Okay, now for comparison, you might be thinking, losing $70, that's not a big deal, that's not going to make me or break me, but we're talking over 5 years. If you bought 100 shares of Microsoft, you would have spent $10,000 and had $43,000. That's a 4x return compared to a $70 loss. I'm going to just throw that out there. Okay, I can do the same thing with Tesla, with Google, with Nvidia, and all of these would have blown these figures out of the water. So this is a lesson here in that dividends aren't the only thing that you absolutely want to focus on. Next here is one that really shocked me, and that is Pfizer. And the reason why it shocks me is because remember, 5 years ago from now is 2019. And during that period, right in the middle of that period, we had a whole thing called a pandemic, and I expected Pfizer to do quite well, and I thought this was going to be a positive thing for Pfizer. Looking back, that was not the case. 5 years ago, you would need close to $4,000 to get 100 shares of Pfizer. Today, you would have lost close to $800. You would have $3,219, including the dividend, which is mind-blowing to me. I really thought that Pfizer would have done much better. Do they have a future? I mean, yeah, sure, but it's not something that I would look into, especially when there's so many companies that are in that space that are doing quite better, even though they're paying smaller dividends. So you have to make sure that dividends, again, are not your only focus. I always treat them like a bonus. And speaking of tips and bonuses, you make sure you check out our members only, where I drop weekly tips, and we do one-on-one conversations and analysis and requests. So you definitely want to make sure you're inside our members only. All right, tripping over my words, because this next one is pretty bad. Okay, so Boeing. Okay, Boeing is not great, and that is because 5 years ago. Well, first off, let's talk about now. Okay, let's talk about now. Right now, Boeing's in the news, and the stock is down. Perhaps if they hadn't, ran into all of these issues, then the stock would have done much better. But 5 years ago, Boeing was having some issues and things weren't good back then either. And it's kind of strange that we're right back where we are. So back then, you would have needed $34,200 to get 100 shares of Boeing. Today, you'd have $23,030. Okay, 23030. That's a greater than $10,000 loss when you include the dividends for a company like Boeing. There are people, when I did my original Boeing video about, 3 weeks or so ago, say, look, defense contracting, competition, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man, over 5 years, and you still losing money, and I'm including the dividend, and you're still losing money? I don't know. Now, I did say in that video, and we did do an analysis, that there are some points where you could have picked it up for cheap and you still would be up. That is true, but it is much harder to do. That is much harder to do. What is a company that I am considering buying myself, and, I might have to pick some shares up for my kids too? That one is Disney. Now, y'all know I have an entire playlist about me bashing Disney for the most part, because 5 years ago, if you invested in Disney, 100 shares of Disney, you would have needed $11,200 to do so. Today, you would have $9,963. So you would have lost some money there too. But today, we just found out that Disney's earnings were pretty good, and they're looking to increase their dividend by 50%. They are changing a lot of things at Disney. If you look at the last 3 months, Disney has had a significant gain too. Now, I did an entire breakdown and analysis on Disney, and you definitely want to check that video out. But also, if you're interested in dividends, there's a dividend trap that you want to avoid, and I have some of the best dividend stocks that you want to check out. If you want to learn more about both of those, check out these videos right here.